And happy Wednesday to the world out there, and happy pre-draft, everybody. Ross and Zeb, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today, and it's almost draft day.
Day, I'm pumped.
It basically is.
So, when we talk about draft day, we're not talking about the Kevin Costner movie. We are actually talking about the 2019 NFL Draft. It's like 19 hours away, I believe. No, less than that. It is, 19 hours away from now.
I want my first rounders back, all of them.
Man, I mean, I don't know how to put it, but for those of you that are not online, that are not paying attention, the Seahawks just secured another first-round draft pick.
Yeah, they did. We went from being chumps of the draft to, well, not kings, but at least jokers.
The belle of the ball.
Yeah, we are. And I like where they're at. 21, 29, we could do anything. We could do anything. I mean, we're not going to do much, but we could do anything.
We could, and that's kind of like the exciting thing. There's so many possibilities that can happen.
Those together and go all the way up to 7 and get some overrated there.
You could trade for every single 7th round draft pick.
You could. Right now, we could probably buy every single 6th and 7th rounder.
That would be tight. Think about the guys we could draft.
That would be so crazy. An entire camp of just 6th and 7th rounders.
Talk about depth.
Talk about camp fodder.
and you'd secure all the punters and kickers. Be like, sorry, all the kickers are ours, all the punters are ours, and we're going to take a long snapper just in case.
We're not taking a long snapper. We're taking all the long snappers.
Oh,
if you're in need of a long snapper this year, you better talk to us.
If Sean McVay touched that guy, we're drafting him.
Everybody whose last name is Ott automatically drafted.
Well, guys, the draft is upon us, and the Seahawks make a move in the first, not out of it, but into it twice. Defensive end Frank Clark has been sent to Kansas City in exchange for their first-round pick, the 29th overall, a 2020 second-round pick, which they have two of. We get the lower of those two, and then we swap third-round picks. So they're a little bit apart, but we still keep our third-rounder. Frank Clark gets his $21 million plus a year with the Chiefs. Seahawks save over $17 million in cap space, which means that defensive tackle Jarran Reed and Bobby Wagner, in their last years, they could get extended, and the Seahawks haven't even drafted yet. This is a Hawkscast podcast, and with me is Zeb and Ross. And gentlemen, I think all of us feel like this is the kickoff to NFL, right? I think free agency is exciting, but the Seahawks are so inactive in it. It's really about the draft for the Seahawks in their offseason. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the draft is when it feels like football's kind of around the corner finally. And this is honestly this part of it is almost as fun, if not more fun, than the actual football game sometimes. So,
do you ever get the sense that until the draft comes around, you're not as excited, but then it's here and oh God, I gotta watch. I gotta have ESPN on. I gotta have NFL Network on. I gotta see the ticker on Twitter and see what happens. All that stuff. I mean, it's always crazy, right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week that I'm a little more excited this year than I have been in the few seasons past, and I think that's mainly just because I've been listening to more sports radio than usual. But yeah, I'm excited to just have the draft tracker going all day long while I'm at work, or if I'm at home watching it on TV and just watching it all unfold. Man, it's a good time.
Yeah. Arizona's still on the clock. Goddamn, make a pick. It's on the clock. It feels like for months.
I mean, do you remember when teams with the first-round pick would have to basically negotiate as soon as the college season and the Super Bowl was done? They'd be like, all right, we're picking this dude, and we're going to negotiate a contract before we even draft him.
Yeah, I mean, there used to be so much drama. Who's going to hold out?
Right.
And it got bad how much you were having to pay a guy just because you were getting him in the first round, without even having to prove himself yet.
Yeah.
Bunch of crap.
DeMarcus Russell finally just broke that. They're everybody just had to finally admit, we got to change this.
Yeah. Happy draft eve to Birdfinger out there. This is super exciting stuff. I mean, I think Zeb, to your point, what's most exciting about this draft is we all knew going into it the Seahawks were very low in draft capital. They only had 4 picks. I think it was a first, a third, and a fifth, and a sixth. I don't even know if there might have been a fifth and a seventh. But basically, they were going in pretty scarce. But they make this trade. They add a first rounder. They get a second rounder for next year, which is going to be big. And all of a sudden, they've got this huge capital. And they, I don't think they wanted to get rid of Frank, but it just opened so many more options for them. But let's get into let's get into topic number 1, because that is all about Frank Clark. Zeb, who came out ahead in the Frank Clark deal?
Without really overanalyzing it, because there's a lot of things that can happen, I feel like Frank Clark is the one who came out ahead. I think
105 million times.
Yeah, I think everybody kind of got what they wanted out of it. I think it's in that sense, it's a pretty even deal. I think the Chiefs got the pass rusher they were looking for. I think the Seahawks got the draft capital they were looking for, and my man Frank made himself a multi-millionaire. So, I feel like it was a good trade for all parties involved. But ultimately, Frank's the one taking that money to the bank. And we got our draft picks, but there's always uncertainty there. Who are we going to get? How are they going to pan out over the next few years? The Chiefs got them a good pass rusher. Is he worth the money that they're paying him and what they gave up to get him? I don't know. Some would argue yes. Others would argue no. I think that remains to be seen. So ultimately, the winner of the deal to me is Frank Clark himself.
I think that's pretty fair. Ross, what about you? Who comes out ahead if you're gonna crown a winner?
Seahawks come out the winner.
Nice.
I think the Chiefs are going to have a little bit of buyer's remorse. I don't think Clark gets. I don't know. I don't. He got the numbers, and he'll continue to get numbers. I mean, he'll have 10 to 15 sacks this coming season again. But he's also he's not one of those edge rushers who have like 15 sacks, but also like when they're not getting the sacks, they're kind of dominating. I don't see him that way. I thought like there were games he just disappeared last year, and that's you're paying him as if he is one of the best, and he's young and maybe he'll develop more, but I think he is what he is, and I think they're also going to realize that's a lot of money to pay him. I don't know. I could be wrong. I think the Seahawks will come out ahead. I think they could have come out even more ahead if they had really, really wanted to gamble with it. That New York Jet trade that's rumored, that could have been that's a lot of point value. So you only get that third rounder, but then you can trade down and down and down and down, but then you don't know where that's going to fall, so it's a bit risky. But I thought the Seahawks come out ahead. They get all that, they lose all the drama. They get the potential salary out of the way. It's a good draft to get edge rushers. Even if you don't get one of the elites, you can take a couple of the lessers later on and probably get the same production out of it eventually in aggregate. I thought we came out ahead. I thought it was a smart move.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time arguing with either of you. I think Frank Clark definitely came out ahead because he got the money he wanted. He's going to a team that's going to pay him and is going to highlight him as a team. I think I'm going to kind of take a different route and say I agree with both of you. I think both of you are right. I think the loser in all of this is kind of traditional GM style football, because this move is a classic. We need a win now, so we're going to make a big splash. It's almost akin to what we saw with Percy Harvin and Jimmy Graham. Seahawks saw a deficiency. Oh, we need ridiculous speed, and we need this burst. We're gonna draft. We're going to trade our first for Percy Harvin, give him a big contract. Or, you know what, we're not good enough in the red zone if Marshawn can't go, so we need to trade for Jimmy Graham. And what I feel like is the NFL continues to fall into these paths, and on this time it's the flip side, where the Seahawks are the one receiving the benefit of a team making kind of that desperation move because they think they're so close. They think they're on the verge. This is a team that took it toe-to-toe with the Patriots into the AFC Championship game, but their defense just couldn't hold anybody. Like, they just look so bad. So I think the loser in all of this is traditional football GMs that are always going to make that risky. We're going to give the contract to this high-level player who we think is going to help us turn the edge. We're going to give up a ton of money to them, and we're going to give a first-round pick in the meantime with it as well. I think the NFL, those traditional GMs and the Seahawks have also been caught in that twice. I think they're the loser in this. But Frank Clark and the Seahawks, I think, come out as winners in it overall.
For what it's worth, I hope he goes out there and he's everything they want him to be, and I wish, nothing but ultimate success for him. So that's something. Ross, can I ask you if this Frank Clark deal helps you feel a little bit better about the Russell Wilson contract?
No.
That was the thing, right? You were asking if we can't pay all these guys, right?
You can't. I mean, like it doesn't make me feel better because it was just sort of almost to me inevitable. Or you were just gonna fill a roster full of just guys besides 5 other people. Because at the end of the day, for me, like the Russell Wilson things is all about the quarterback contract. Some of the team is gonna have a top 5 quarterback who's on his rookie deal for $5 or $6 million, and we're gonna have to pay $35. And so essentially they're starting the game like $30 million ahead of us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but so really quickly, my only problem with that kind of theory is that you expect your rookie quarterback to be good. I mean, we've got the Cardinals thinking about drafting Kyler Murray number 1 overall because they don't believe in Josh Rosen because they got a new head coach. So that's
exactly. But that's the thing. We don't have a bad coach.
Right.
It's not random. Like people look at all these things and they analyze things as if it's all random. Like you're rolling dice. We're not rolling dice. We have quality people in quality positions who can get you a quality person. It's not a sure thing. You're right. But what I'm saying is it's a very, very. I mean, people disagree. I mean, reasonably, people can disagree. I'm not gonna die on this hill. I'm happy to get to watch Russell Wilson for 5 years. I just think, and I don't think it's even impossible to win the Super Bowl. I just think it's difficult. I think we've just essentially staked our position in the playoffs for 5 years. But
right. And I think we talked about the last week, and I agree with you. Like, we've solidified playoff position for 5 years. Super Bowl, we need things to go right. We need this draft to go well. And this is kind of where having all of these draft picks, having this Frank Clark deal fall into play really helps us. Because I look at it from this standpoint. I love Frank. I thought he was great as a player on this team. I'm going to root for him on Kansas City, and we don't have to play him for 4 more years. So that's great. But my hope is that whatever happens with what Seattle gets in return, they can turn it into something, because that's where they need to make strides. They need to be able to say, like, hey, we've got this value. Whatever we do with it, we need to turn it into valuable players on the field. And that's kind of what I'm hoping is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not down on anything anybody's done. I'm not down even on the Russell Wilson thing. I just think I guess the word is resigned. I'm just resigned to the fact that it means that we're playing. I mean, we're playing an advantage of the fact that we're playing with Russell Wilson, but it means that we're playing the dollar game, starting way behind on some teams who happen to have, because of the cycle of how things work, they have a top 5 quarterback on the rookie deal.
Right.
And now we're spending peanuts on our defensive ends, so
right, that
helps a little bit.
It does. I mean, like, that's the thing. Basically, it's all about where you're going to make up that money. And if we happen to get somebody, whereas they, for example, Kansas City is also like a Super Bowl contender. That's why they made this deal. So, yeah, in a sense, maybe it catches up on them. Like, they're paying their quarterback peanuts still, Mahomes. But, yeah, now they're paying 23 to their defensive end. So we've caught up, $12 million there. And that helps.
Right.
I guess I should feel a little bit better, but
yeah, and that's the point that I would kind of close on in the Frank Clark topic is I think the Seahawks would rather have the $17 million that they get freed up by not having a franchise tag player on the roster to use to either extend other guys, which again is just going to cost more money, but it's guys that they know are going to be able to be in the system, do well. And Jarran Reed, he had a 10.5 sack season. I don't know if that's something he can repeat, but I don't think that defensive tackles are going to be super expensive anyway. So, hopefully we can retain him somehow. If the market's not super strong, then, I think that's better positioning for the Seahawks.
Yeah, we'll see.
Concur.
Birdfinger on the chat saying, right now it's a good, even trade. Who we pick and how well Clark performs can change that. And that's always something that can happen. If someone goes bonkers and Frank Clark turns into Lawrence Taylor, it's going to make the Seahawks look bad. But if the Seahawks can get a stud or multiple studs with the picks they get, then it'll bode really well for us.
As long as we don't draft Aaron Curry.
Oh my God, Aaron Curry. Heart attack.
Safest pick in the draft. Safest pick in the draft.
In Ruskell we trust, and I kill anyone that says that to me. Alright, moving on to topic number 2. Ross, will Seattle repeat history by trading out of the first round? And it's kind of a trick question because they got 2 to trade out now.
It's yeah. I mean, if you consider like each one is sort of like its individual trail and path, and like, you know, that's what started. I think at least one of them they'll trade out of all the way out. Like if the 21st, if they trade back multiple times, but eventually with one of them, you know, they'll be out. I'm starting to think, listening to John Schneider and Pete Carroll talk, and looking at the draft board and how I think most people are evaluating it. I think there's a really high chance they move out of the first with both. I think once you get to the 21st pick and you see who's generally left there, it's mostly people who have like a second round rating, I believe, evaluation. So there's not a lot of point hanging around in the first round if you're trying to get value. If you're just trying to add talent at the best price possible, you may as well just move on to the second if you can. I wrote somewhere else. It may not be as easy as we think, because you still want to get value. And when you're trying to trade down and everybody in the world knows you're trying to trade down, that's not ideal. You know, you don't want to enter negotiations when the other person knows you're desperate. So we'll see. But there's a lot of people are saying that there's not a lot of first round talent, but the second round talents are so much that it extends into the third round. So I think you want to be in the late first, and you want to be in the second round heavy. If you even look at the interviews and the meetings, they've talked to a lot of players who have second round evaluations on them, which is interesting because, you know, they don't have a second round pick. So I mean, they seem to be pointing that way as well.
Zeb, what about you? I mean, it's almost a consensus that you talk to any Seahawks fan who has watched this team for the past few years, there's almost a guarantee that they're going to trade out of the first round. What's your take?
Well, if we go by history, I mean, it's pretty much a sure thing that not only will we trade out of the first round with at least one of our picks, we'll probably trade down multiple times. But, you know, again, I have to submit to Ross on this subject. I'm not the kind of person that really goes studying the draft and the players coming in and the, you know, strategies and what people are going to do. So I think whatever he says, I'm probably tend to agree with, but I do expect them to trade out of the first round with at least one. Honestly, probably both of those picks.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is you look at what Pete and John have done, and I almost feel as if they have a adverse feeling about first round draft picks. And it's not that I don't think they feel that the players are talented, but I think they feel that the value based upon what they can get and what they have to kind of give contract wise to them, it's not like even, because you have to give them so much more money, and then they've got the 5th-year player option, which to some degree kind of like ruins the player, because you can I mean because the idea is all first rounders get a 4-year deal, and then you can extend them as an option for a 5th year, and that's kind of a set number. And it's always greater than the value of like the life of the contract, because all contracts are slotted now. And that extra year, I kind of feel like teams are like really wary of using it, because they kind of like the franchise tag. It's a starting point, but it's an artificial starting point. Like Frank Clark was tagged with a $17 million franchise tag, but the Seahawks didn't want to pay him $17 million. But him and his agent are going to say, this is the starting point. You're going to give us at least $17 million plus the value of a 2nd-year franchise tag and the value of a 3rd franchise tag, which is why Frank Clark got $65 million guaranteed. And I think that Seattle doesn't want to be in those positions.
I thought, I had the impression that Seattle didn't mind paying 17. When the negotiations, before DeMarcus Lawrence signed his contract, I had the feeling that overall things were kind of optimistic, and the Seahawks had kind of budgeted 17, 18 million for him, and like if that's where the market was going to fall, I thought they wanted him. I didn't think it was really started to feel really negative until that contract was signed, and it was really apparent that he was going to want even more. Even at 20, I think they didn't want him. At 21, they don't want him. At 23, they don't want him. So I don't know. I thought they liked him at 17.
I think they like him at 17 because it's flexible. Like there's no penalty if they end up working in trade because the franchise tag doesn't have it. Birdfinger chimes in and says, would that extra year of control that comes with the first round pick tempt him to reach anyone at the bottom of the first? My feeling is that I think the Seahawks like not having not having to be hampered by these options and auto triggers that say like, oh yeah, a franchise tag, a 5th-year player option. Like you even look at what they do with like restricted free agents. They don't always tag them as the highest level. They're going to say like, what is the value? Let's see if anyone wants to bite, and then that will give us kind of leverage, because they say, oh, we'll get something in return.
Just real quick, Dr. Diogs is listening in. He can't log in for some reason. He's unable to log in even though he changed his password, so he's listening only tonight. Thank you.
What up, Doc?
What's up, good doctor? How you doing, man?
He can't answer you. I just said that.
If you don't catch us live, you can always catch the podcast on SoundCloud. It's at soundcloud.hawkscastpodcast, and it's also going to be on the website at hawkscast.com under the podcast section. So these are always going to be available. It's also on YouTube, so if you actually want to see like the title cards, they're on YouTube.
Go to YouTube.
Final thoughts on Seattle repeating its first round history.
What if they surprise us and they package both those picks to move up to like 2 or 3 or something like that?
I kind of thought about that last night. I looking at the card value, it would get them like the board, whatever the trade card, the point value assigned, everything. It should move them up to like if they combined it, it would move up to 7 or 8.
Really?
Because,
that's it. Like
I was expecting it to be lower than that. So to get up to 7 or 8 is pretty ridiculous.
So the 21st pick is worth 800 points. The 29th is 640. So that's 1,440. The number 8 pick is 1,400. That's the Lions at the moment. Number 7 is 1,500 points. So we're right between 7 and 8. If you want to play the fantasy, hey, if we wanted to take the coolest dude in the room, so at 7 and 8, you probably would get somebody like. See, I don't even like 7 or 8. See, quarterbacks go overrated, so they get moved up. You're looking at still like something like Devin Bush, which we don't need. Maybe
Clellan.
Yeah, well, I think he gets lower.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, it sounds awesome to do. When you hear about the rumor with the Jets thing, that was where it was really interesting because that's a lot about the 3rd pick overall is worth I believe 2,200 points, and so we would have given up our 800. We would have to get so like all the way up there. You could have traded back again, or you could just stay at 3 and get whoever you wanted. But you're kind of messing up the rest of your draft because you're still with 3 other picks. But I mean, that was the whole thing. The Jets thing was a non-starter just because the whole idea wasn't just to add value; it was to add picks. And that's where I think a lot of theoretical trades you see in the mocks go wrong. People look straight across on the card and say, "Oh, well, that plus that plus that is the same thing." Yeah, but a lot of these teams they have the extra value variable. They want extra numbers of players. They don't just want a player. So
right.
But yeah, moving up to 7 or 8 would be interesting. I kind of thought actually there was a chance they might do that. Maybe but not using this year's capital, but using next year's.
A lot of capital
using a second. But the thing is, when they say generally if you take a second next year, you trade it as value as the 3rd round this year.
Right.
You take it off, and 3rd round to 2nd round. I mean, there's a huge drop off. So although it sounds like we have a huge amount of capital next year, and we actually do when it is next year. It doesn't translate. You're losing a lot, so you may as well hold on a year, I think. Although in one of my drafts, I do have them giving it a 3rd from next year.
Yeah.
As sort of a thing. But overall, it's not very economical to do.
And I think that's kind of like the appealing aspect about the draft is like there's all these things, the value chart that obviously is old, but it seems to kind of like rear its head again and again and again. You look at all of these people that use that as a basis to determine, did a team get value based upon this chart? And for the most part, that chart seems to be still pretty accurate, which is really amazing to think about, even though it's something that everyone has. It seems like it's a baseline. It still holds true.
Yeah, I mean, until this year, I've never. It's been years and years and years since I took a close look at the draft, and I've been one of the people who in the past poo-pooed the chart itself. But then this year, when I used it, I was like, you know what? The more I keep using it, the more I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. I thought the drop off was too steep, but now I start to see why.
But to your point, you see like the number one pick, and you look at the 32nd pick, and it's like, the number one pick is worth like 5 of that 32nd pick, and it's the idea that you have the entire pool available to you, whereas at the 32nd pick, 31 players have already gone, so you're picking, the 32nd best player, right?
I do think it should be slightly modified every year, because every year there's a certain amount of people you just feel like they're sort of in a class by themselves.
Right.
But there might be 20 first round grades, but 10 of them are like, the alpha among those. And there's no doubt that those guys are going to be gone. 10 out of those are going to be gone in the first 15, minus the reach as a quarterback. Really? By the way, I think we use reach as a quarterback a little bit too much. It's because what you were talking about earlier, that fifth-year option. With certain players, you want that fifth-year option. So we always go, that's a reach. But I think it's, many times they're not being dumb. They're not actually reaching. They're like, yeah, it's worth it to, pick this guy one round earlier if you have him under control for one more year, right? Especially a quarterback who needs to develop sometimes.
Oh, and we just got the good doctor chiming in. Sup, Birdfinger and all. Had to create a new account. Dr. Dags, thank you for dropping in. Always a pleasure to see you show up
every
on the
time.
Chat. Actually, we would love for you to actually appear on the podcast one day, so maybe we can work that out. We got more draft stuff coming, so let's actually move on. So this one, Zeb, this is from the Hawkscast Corner, so this is from the forum, hawkscast.com. And Doctor, we are diehards, but you know just as much as we do, I believe. Probably know more than I do, for sure. You know the history definitely better than I do. Zeb, Hawkscast Corner, topic number 3. Marshawn Lynch retires again. Is he a Hall of Famer? There's a couple comments you wrote on it. I wrote on this. Like to get your thoughts.
Well, this is something that I've thought about quite a bit over the last couple of years, although I'm dumb, so I don't have a lot to say about it, really. I've just thought about it a lot. I feel like statistically, and with these media people, the ones that actually do the voting, I think they are very stat heavy. They rely on statistics to make their decisions. I think that statistically he's not quite there, at least not to get in his first few years of eligibility. I do believe he will get in eventually, sort of like Cortez Kennedy did, where he gets in kind of more on reputation than necessarily numbers on the field. Man, if a couple other things had gone just a little bit differently, I hate to even bring it up, but if we'd won that second Super Bowl,
somebody's got to say it.
And especially if he'd have scored that touchdown, likely making him the MVP, then I think there's zero doubt, right? But as it stands, he broke the 10,000 yard rushing mark, but he's still behind a lot of guys there. There's a lot of guys waiting to get in that ran for more yards, more touchdowns than he did. So I do think he'll get in eventually, but I don't think it's going to be, if he's officially retired now, he'd be eligible in what, 2024?
Yeah, 2024.
I don't see it happening in those first few years. Maybe 10 years, 10 to 15 years out. I do believe he'll get in at some point, but it's not going to be right away.
Ross, I know you got a lot of feelings about Marshawn Lynch, and you kind of poo-pooed, why is this in the topic? This is a pre-draft podcast. Like, why are you putting this here? It's because I created the show sheet. I want to talk about it because I'm excited about Marshawn.
Oh, it's a good topic. I like the topic, and I know you guys know that I know that you know that I know that I'm not the biggest Marshawn Lynch fan in the world as far as he goes. I think, to be honest, some of it anyway. But let's get to the point, right? Is he? I like the wording. Is he a Hall of Famer? Is it could he or should he or whatever? Here's the thing. I don't think he's going to get in. I think he's going to have, like Zeb said, the stats are not going to be quite there, and too many people rely on stats. And he's going to come up as this thing where, like, the Seahawks were so good at that time. He might come up against several Seahawks, right? Like, you can't have, like, a class with 3 Seahawks in it. It's not going to happen. Like, they don't like that. You know, like the old school Pittsburgh Steelers players used to kind of cancel each other out. I think he's going to run up against a little bit of that as well. And we were famous for the defense, and as time goes by. But here's my thing, and this might surprise you. My own personal feeling is I think he is a Hall of Fame player because I don't think it should be a stats thing. I think it's you guys. I'm going to show my age here a little bit. Do you guys know Lynn Swann? Yeah, right?
Oh, man,
Yes.
I talked about this to a friend of mine at work, and I use that exact example, Ross.
I'm a Lynn Swann Hall of Fame guy.
I'm not.
Really?
But I didn't grow up in that era, so I'm uneducated in that sense.
Lynn Swann, if you look at it, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he totally deserves to be there, in my opinion. But if you're like the modern generation, you go look at his numbers, they're not there. He's not but he was best in the memorable moments in the biggest games. In the Super Bowls, he dominated. Sometimes only like 4 catches in a game, or 4 catches for 132 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he remembered the plays. And that's what fame means. It's not, you don't remember numbers. How many yards did Walter Payton run for? I don't remember. 14, I don't know. But if you tell me, like, name 3 plays, 3 runs of Walter Payton's, I can name them. Barry Sanders, I can name you runs. I don't know. No, I don't know his career average. That's not true. I do know his career average. But I don't know all the numbers of Barry Sanders, but I remember some runs with him. And Hall of Fame is like, who do you go down and who are you talking about? And we're going to be talking about Marshawn Lynch 20 years from now. We're going to be talking about the Beastquake run for 20 years. That's fame. We don't talk about Art Monk's 109-yard digs, a year for 20 years. We don't talk. Nobody talks about Art Monk. You're going to be talking about Marshawn Lynch forever. That's a Hall of Fame player, then. I mean, like, he's gone down in fame, right? He's a Hall of Fame.
Here so I won't get fined.
I mean, seriously, even that is like, he's a character. Like, you think Joe Namath got only on his numbers? Like, Joe Namath is also on character.
Right.
Like that, calling the Super Bowl when the AFC was nothing. So, in my opinion, yeah, Marshawn Lynch is not even a question. He's a Hall of Famer. He's got like 2 named runs to his name. Who else has that? Name a name. Like, does Barry Sanders, who was an amazing player, does he even have a play that you actually have a name for?
He's just like this whirlybird of people like jumping and missing. That's Barry Sanders in a nutshell.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch, and it was great, and he should be on there as well. But again, like, yeah, but Marshawn Lynch, you've got like named runs. And I feel fortunate I was able to watch one of them. I didn't get to see the actual Beastquake, but I got to see the replay in Arizona. I mean, like, I don't know how it's a question.
I think you both bring up really, really great points, and I want to pull in the chat real quick. So the good doctor says his relationship with the media will hold him back for a while, and he may have to go in as a veteran. If he had a second Super Bowl, it would have cemented his place. It depends on how much the NFL Network kisses up to him. Birdfinger wants to know how many years does he get in after he's eligible. He says within 5. The good doctor says it's going to be over 5 years. And then talks about the Philly run, which was special, which is on the webpage. Go to Hawkscast, go to the forum topic. Birdfinger talked about the Cards game, which is also on the podcast, and the Redskins playoff game or his pickup fumble of Russell Wilson. I mean, we're obviously fans of the Seahawks, which means that we are fans of these great highlights. And I think, Ross, what you said really kind of echoes. The NFL is not always about the stats. It's not about, like, you have to hit X benchmark to get in. Because if you look at the benchmark, there's about 30 players that have gone over 10,000 yards. 9 of them currently are going to be over 10,000 yards, and they are not in the Hall of Fame. So it's not automatic, like, you hit this benchmark like in baseball or in basketball or other sports, and you're automatically in. Lynn Swann does not have great overall numbers. You look at the number of years he played, you look at the number of receptions he had, his career yardage. There's nothing impressive to look at it. But like you said, you have to put it into the impact of when did he get those yards, when did he make those catches, and what was the situation. His runs in the playoff are really what kind of like elevate him, and I think that's kind of the thing that if you didn't watch or you didn't live in that era, or you didn't see the tape of that era, it's something you could easily miss. But I think any fan that watched football between 2012 to 2015 saw great runs by Marshawn Lynch, whether they were a Seahawks fan or not. And I think that's what propels him as a Hall of Famer. I believe that he is a Hall of Famer based upon he does have the stats, not the highest, but he has stats that are going to get him into the conversation because he did break the 10,000 yards. He's 29th overall in rushing touchdowns. There's only 2 other players that have more touchdowns than him that are not probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. But you think about all his highlights, you think about all the plays he did, and you even try to compare him against other players that have similar stats. I can't think of a single run. Like, there's guys like Corey Dillon, Edgerrin James, all these other players that have good stats, but I don't think they had the career or the impact that Marshawn had. Doctor says he probably fits the Terrell Davis mold and makes it in the same time frame. Kind of mediocre in Buffalo and killed me in fantasy, but he is a special player and will be interesting to see how it plays out. And that's another thing. From a fantasy standpoint, Marshawn Lynch was one of the most consistent players for a 3-4 year stretch. I had him for 3 of those 4 years, so he helped me a lot.
No, I mean, that alone.
But I think the thing that I also want to talk about is one of the things I think, Zeb, you asked this on the forum, was does he make it into the Ring of Honor? And I think there is definitely a timeline because the Seahawks have not added a Ring of Honor player in a couple of years. But there's guys like Matt Hasselbeck and maybe Sean Alexander. I think that those guys, they have to retire a little bit later before we talk about Ring of Honor status, which is kind of like you're like well into your retirement, I think, before that's even a consideration. But I would definitely vouch for him as a Ring of Honor player, along with like 12 other players from this era.
Why do we have to wait to put Matt Hasselbeck in? I mean, are we doubting he's going to be there?
I don't know if it's so much doubting, but it just seems like this, I don't know, maybe it's just not the time, because he's been retired for a while, right? It's been 3 years, maybe? So maybe after 10?
It might only be 2. He played that. I don't know.
I feel like it makes a little bit of sense to wait.
I mean, I guess.
I guess the feeling is there's not a rush to get these guys into the Ring of Honor.
Or maybe this time we get Haas in because it's going to be only a matter of years before we start filling that thing with guys from the Pete Carroll era, right?
Right. So, you know what? Here's a question. Does Brandon Browner go in?
No.
Although I'd put him in, but
first Ring of Honor player is going to be Cam Chancellor.
First?
Yeah, all of these players, because he's going to retire the first.
Yeah, I guess you're probably right there.
I think he's the one. I mean, he's already raised the 12th man flag, so I see.
What do you think the chances are that they just put in the Legion of Boom?
I would actually love that if they did that, like Legion of Boom, and it shows like the 3 of their names.
And Brandon Browner.
Man, Brandon Browner gets so much disrespect.
Brandon Browner's in jail. I don't know if you can put him in.
Yeah, I think he may have ruined those chances.
O.J. Simpson's in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but he also lost his Heisman Trophy, so it's not a permanent accolade.
Yeah. I was just gonna say last quick thing on Lynn Swann. Never had more than 880 yards receiving in a season.
Yeah.
Cut him.
But here's the weird thing. Max yards in a season, 880, still made the Pro Bowl 3 times.
Yeah, I mean, that was a different era for sure.
Back when that's like bounced it back when the Pro Bowl like meant, well, kind of.
Yeah.
The older I get, the more I realize how fruitless it is to actually compare players across generations. It's
definitely. That's
worthless.
I'm
Yeah.
so curious, like what Jim Zorn would be like if he got to play for Pete Carroll.
Yeah. I mean, here's the crazy thing. Russell Wilson is 12 touchdowns behind Kurt Warner. And Kurt Warner played for
And that was like the
12 years. Kurt Warner played for 12 years. He didn't start all 12 years, but he played for 12 years. Russell Wilson is going into his 8th year.
That's crazy.
And he's 12 touchdowns, passing touchdowns behind a Hall of Famer. I'm on the mindset of Kurt Warner is not a Hall of Famer, which is the only reason why I looked up his stats. But that's what it is. So
And he's a Hall of Famer because of the 2 Super Bowls, the different teams thing, right?
yeah, but he only won 1. He went to 3 Super Bowls. He only won 1. You gotta win 2, and then I'll talk to you.
If you could hear how petty that sounds. You channeled like your inner high school girl voice, like, but he only won 1, Mom.
But Becky, he only won 1 Super Bowl.
Like it's like 1. Like you could probably wake up in the morning and accidentally win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but winning two is my threshold.
How many?
Two is
How many has Russell Wilson been to?
He's been to 2.
How many did you win? Oh, now how many did you win?
He's only won 1.
Exactly like
He only won 1.
Only won 1. I want more, Ross.
So do I.
Playoffs are not enough anymore. We're not in the Holmgren era. We are in the Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson era, where Super Bowl or bust.
10 a.m. doesn't matter.
Exactly. Real quick, Dr. Dag says Haas, Hutch, and Sean have to go through first, I assume. Though Hutch has me a little PO'd. He also says that Browner is like Brian Blades. Birdfinger says Hutch got to be Hall of Fame, but I don't want him in our Ring of Honor.
I don't either.
2 is like when you have to prove it in horse. So that's my threshold. You win 2, Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning. I don't like either of you, but you're probably going to get into the Hall of Fame.
See, we brought up Hutch now. I'm like, okay, I would think no, he doesn't get into our Ring of Honor, but they let him come back and raise the 12 flag, right?
We were at that game, Zeb. Yeah.
So
I can forgive him enough to raise the flag. I'm not going to hang the jersey in the rafter after he purposely signed that contract. You don't get takebacks. It's all right. You can raise the flag.
Ban him.
You can raise the flag because it means like raising the flag means like, hey, like I'm kind of over it. No bad feelings. I get it. You did what you had to do for your career and whatever you thought was best at the time. Cool, But the Ring of Honor is like a ring of. It's something different. It's a higher level, and maybe we're over it, but that doesn't erase what you did.
Not over it. I hold
Give him the Pete Rose treatment. Ban him.
I mean, it's just being an adult and being responsible for what you did. Like you sort of like lost your right to ever have that honor by saying, I'm signing this poison pill thing, so you guys can't even sign me. You guys can't keep me. That's fine. That's cool. Like, you know what? I'm over it. I really, really am. I'm really not bitter. But I'm just saying, like, you're not a Seahawk, Ring of Honor guy when you have that on your resume.
I hope he doesn't get into the Vikings halls of Valhalla or whatever they have over there either.
Halls of Heidi.
I don't know.
All right. Let's move on to our final topic for the night. So, Ross, what is the Seahawks draft strategy going into 2019? Ross, you got to talk about what happened on the forum at the same time that the Frank Clark deal happened. Tell us what happened.
So this week, this year, our site, hawkscast.com, we've decided to put out more content, and I have decided to be the draft guy, apparently. And so I've been putting a lot of time and effort and steady hours into the draft, like I haven't done for years. And so this week, early in the week, I decided to have 2 Seahawk all 7-round draft mock drafts made. One would be the simple one. One would be like, so the simple one is just, here's what the picks they have. If they don't make any moves, not going to happen. But if they made no moves, here's who they should pick. That was the one I was going to make first. The second one is one that gets really complex with all the trades in it, what we think might happen. So, first night of doing this, I stay up all night till about 4:30, 4:45 in the morning, just doing my straight across research, which still takes much longer than you'd think. Just doing my straight across. Here's their 4 picks. Here's who I want. I literally finish and press submit. About to go to bed, just decided to check the website in case anything interesting is happening. And I find that 5 or 10 minutes before I finish my article, they've traded Frank Clark, and they now have another first-round pick, and all their needs have changed, obviously, because there's a big hole, and the third rounder no longer applies. And so everything I spent 5 hours writing that night no longer was accurate or mattered whatsoever. And not only that, what was going to be my cool claim to fame on my first big mock year, getting something exactly right, was blown because the second night, last night, the one I published I guess this morning in Seattle time, was my complex traded draft. I had the Seahawks trading Frank Clark to Kansas City for the 29th pick and other stuff, which is reasonably close to what they ended up getting. So I would have had it on my resume, predicted that exactly right. But and I had it down, just hadn't published it right. And they, because I thought they were going to do it on draft day. And so that got blown out of the water as well. So that was rather frustrating. I ended up staying up to like 5:45 in the morning correcting my draft.
Brutal.
It was
Rough.
so like 6 o'clock in the morning. People around here are waking up and going, "Oh, you're up this early." I'm like, "No, I'm still awake. I'm still awake." Yeah, it was awesome. It was an awesome draft experience.
All right. So what'd you learn? How did you channel your inner Pete Carroll, your inner John Schneider?
I think when you have the picks they have now, you definitely have to make sure you get like impact players. You're not obviously going just for depth, and we don't have the roster is going for depth. You want to have impact players in positions that really, really matter most for your team. And then looking at the players available and where we draft, I think there's only 18 players with a true first round rating. I think from how I've looked at some of my own evaluations, also compiling lots of other people's evaluations, I feel like there's about 50 guys, 45 guys with second round ratings starting in this first round, actually more like 50. So I think like second round ratings are going to start towards the end of first round, go all the way into the third round if you're smart and savvy. So I think the strategy is to get out of the first, use the 21 and 29 to trade down. You want a lot of picks between like 35 and 107 or so, 110 in that area. I think there's a lot of value there. There's only a couple really, really impactful safeties, and I think reading between the lines, they felt like the lack of a really, really quality free safety last year really hurt them. They've brought in a couple safeties, including one I now have my crush on. So I want them to go after. I don't know if you pronounce it Jawan or Juan. I don't know. I've only read the name. It's spelled like Spanish Juan. Don't know. Juan Thornhill. That's my free safety I want them to get. I think they can get him beginning of the second round. And I also want them to go after. I mean, that's I think they think will make the biggest difference. And of course, they have to get an edge guy. I didn't like him previously, but now I have him going after Winovich, and I think that's a good start. But I think they should also go after somebody like Max Crosby and some of the other lesser edge rushers later in the draft. They'll still be there. I think they have
Chase Winovich.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't like him early, but now he's almost like my Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm Princess Leia. He's like the last hope. We're not going to get Brian Burns, and I don't want Farrell anymore. There's just too many flags on him, like injuries. So I think they have to go multiple edge because in case something doesn't work out, plus in case you strike gold, get one early, Chase Winovich, and then a couple late in the draft, and then you got to get impact. We're lucky, like there's a lot of Seahawks fans out there really want some of the sexy wide receivers, and we do need a receiver. I don't think they're going to go after one of the sexiest names though. There's a chance maybe they go after Deebo Samuel, but I think more likely we're going to get something like Andy Isabella, who should be available in the third, and he's like a 4.3 140. He can line up anywhere. Likes to be the slot, but he can go deep. So he can legit take the top off of defense, and you can get him pretty late. So I think it's going to be something like that. Maybe a same kind of deal. So I don't think we're going to get the sexy names people are looking for, but I think they'll get good quality value out of wide receiver position as well. That's where I'm at.
Nice.
I'm with Ross.
Yeah. All right. Topic 4 is done.
Can I mention one more thing?
Go ahead.
There's one more receiver that's not. He doesn't match like the like at the combine, the Seahawks have like for most positions, there's a very very set type they like. There's one guy, his name is Greg Jennings, wide receiver. Lots of people have him like around the 150.
Wait, is he going to put his team on the back?
No, he's not the type, but he's like a poor man's Doug Baldwin, and I'd really really like to get him.
He's not. Wait, this is not related. This is an actual guy named Greg Jennings, not the former.
Not the other one.
Not
Gary.
Not,
Gary Jennings.
This guy's like 20 years younger, 30 years younger. No, he's legit another, good name to have, right? No, but Gary Jennings, he should be available. I think he'd be like a great security blanket and a kind of a big backup plan if Baldwin can't go at all. A couple other names that I was kind of interested in. I fall in love with Justin Lane, cornerback. Is very very Seahawky. I just can't fit him in anywhere.
Interesting.
So I don't think we can get him. But I wouldn't be surprised. They've brought him in. They obviously like him. He's the most Seahawky. Lots of people think there's a cornerback named Michael Jackson. Like,
sign me up. I'm sold.
Right. The Seahawks have like a history of the name as well. They used to be like a middle linebacker with that name.
Multiple Michael Jacksons.
Yeah, there's a lot of Mike Jacksons there.
If they got a Tito Jackson, I would be so ready for that.
What if we had like a Randy and Tito and a Michael at the same time? All Jackson. I would wet my pants. No, but like lots of people think like Michael Jackson is the most Seahawk, and he matches the numbers, and he is kind of brutal at the line of scrimmage, but he's more like a 2012 Seahawk than a 2019 Seahawk. So I think they want to go Justin Lane if they can maneuver better than I can. I couldn't make it work.
Zeb, do you have a grasp of the strategy? I'm going to just say it. I don't. I think I know, but then they draft all these guys I've never heard of. I'm like, okay, that looks cool. Like, oh, ESPN doesn't even have a highlight reel of this guy. We're going to have to wait 20 minutes before we can even see a photo of this guy. So, whatever.
Yeah, that's about how it tends to go for me as well. Like, anything I think doesn't matter. Other than the fact that we're probably going to make a lot of trades. So
here's the question, though. You don't know these guys going in. Ross probably has a much better grasp of all these guys that are going to be falling off of the board and actually being taken. But when you see like their highlight reels, when you go to YouTube, when you see people pulling information out, what is your reaction? Do you say like, oh wow, this highlight reel's good. Like this guy looks like a Seahawks player. Like how do you digest that and try and understand what this player is going to add to the Seahawks? Like, do you see that when
I'm
ticker
the
goes
worst.
through?
I'm the absolute worst. I fall in love with the guy after like 9 plays in a highlight reel. I'm like, oh yeah, he's the one for sure. This is the guy we've always wanted. I don't know.
I was really happy with their draft last year, and I think a lot of those players played well. I think they had really impactful draft picks from that 2018 draft, and I think if they can do that with this 2019, obviously we expect them to turn those 2 first rounders into more players, and not just depth, but guys that can start. Because we do have an area of need. I would tend to side more with going more defensive heavy. I do think we need help at tackle and guard for depth and for the future, and also wide receiver help. But I think if we can get help on the D line, get help in the secondary as the 2 primaries, I would be very, very happy. It doesn't matter what their names are. I think they'll be solid. I'll fall in love with them right away.
Yeah. One of these days in one of these years, the Seahawks are going to draft a stud wide receiver that we've always wanted them to draft. And I guess Joey Galloway would be the one that really was the closest thing to that guy, but wide receiver has always kind of been my favorite position, my favorite players to watch play, and
see, for me, that's kind of the point of paying Russell Wilson. If you're going to pay him that 35, Russell Wilson turns lesser guys like nobody had a better year efficiency wise than Lockett, right?
Yeah,
right.
He's not a Julio Jones type. But because he gets to play with Russell Wilson, he essentially becomes almost a Julio Jones type. That's the kind of the benefit of having somebody like Russell Wilson who can extend the plays, who can see the field, who can move around, who can improvise. And so you can take guys who aren't Joey Galloway who are like just a step below. They don't. It's kind of moneyballing, right?
Right.
Lockett's doesn't. He's never going to get a Julio Jones contract because he doesn't look that way. He's not tall enough. He's not. He doesn't dominate a room when he walks into it. But his production on the field per pass is higher.
Right.
And that's kind of the point. So you take, and that's why, like I was saying earlier, you can get away with getting like back in the day, I thought like Sidney Rice was sort of a good prototype of that. Sidney Rice legitimately can take the top off a defense, but other than that, he's just short of being Julio Jones, right? And so you can get away with people like that. So you can go with like Andy Isabella or Emmanuel Hall, somebody like that. Paris.
Imagine Russ having a Larry Fitzgerald or a Calvin Johnson or one of those kind of guys to throw to.
See, I think I almost wonder if it wouldn't even matter much more. I mean, how much better
Calvin Johnson
can you get?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, Dr. Dag says, does a DeAndre Hopkins flourish here? Our wide receivers are not utilized in the way they should be. How the heck do you waste Jimmy Graham, who you gave up Unger, and try and make him into blocking tight end? I think that's a valid point because, to your point, Ross, a lot of what Seattle's trying to do is they're not trying to just get guys that are going to be open in space. They're going to use a lot of play action. They're going to let a play develop. They're going to allow Russ to buy time. But you also look, he can throw like a quick run. He on a 3-5 step drop, he can hit his spots. He's got the arm. He's got the accuracy that he can hit those deep balls. He is probably one of the best deep balls in the game right now. And it's just getting the wide receiver that can get that first move. And, you look at Doug off the line, he can beat so many DBs off the line. You look at Tyler Lockett, he can find a way to kind of swirl around and get into the secondary and get it over the top. It's just, is the play action on fire? Is the offensive line able to hold? And if those things work, then the offense looks like it's in good position. So that's why I think if we can solidify a Will Dissly, hopefully who will come back healthy, help with the offense line, Mike Ipati on the offensive line, DJ Fluker, Dwayne Brown, I think that will help. But to a degree, I do buy into the fact that, wide receiver is just something that they choose not to invest in because of what Russell Wilson does. Which is why I'm on the Jermaine Kearse bandwagon. I would love to see him hired, signed again, even on a 1-year deal. Maybe he's camp fodder, but I think he has great rapport with Russ.
Can I make one more small point?
Small point.
Just to talk, it's just aimed at Seahawks Twitter. A lot of Seahawks Twitter saying like they need to pass more and look at the stat, analytics, et cetera, and talking about how like the rules of the game even favor the passing game, and that's again to the point. With the modern rules, it doesn't matter who your cornerback is; they can't stick with anybody for 6 seconds. So, if any decent receiver is going to be open after 6 seconds, then you don't have to get somebody like Julio Jones or Hopkins because Lockett is good enough.
Agreed.
He's going to be open 6 seconds as long as he can get deep and be open. Russell Wilson wants to do. And I think they also look purposely for wide receivers that don't have an ego. Because famously, that's a position with a lot of divas.
Yeah.
But you can't be a diva and play for Seattle as a receiver.
And to piggyback off your point, Ross, is that Russell Wilson does a really good job of finding these guys. So, and being really efficient. Like, he doesn't waste a lot of passes. He doesn't try to throw away the ball. He's always looking to make that pass, and a lot of times he completes it, which is why he has a great efficiency rating inside and out of the pocket, off play action, off scramble. And I think that's another thing that sets him apart, why you don't have to invest in that wide receiver, because he will be really efficient with that deep ball. He's not going to be careless with it. So, we'll see what happens. We're only hours and hours away.
Yeah. I know everybody wants that wide receiver, and I hate to be the downer, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
It's not, but it would be awesome if it did.
It would be. I saw
one of these years.
I saw somebody on Twitter talking about getting like top receivers with both the first rounders, and I almost killed myself.
Oh my god, that would be
Lions
insane.
shit.
I was going to say that Matt Millen style, right?
All that matters. All that matters.
Those are our topics. We got some predictions. So, Ross, I'm going to let you start with some predictions because we kind of covered over them. Real quick, Birdfinger says, I still want that big catching the traffic guy, though. Maybe that's Will Disley. Who knows? Maybe David Moore can come back a little bit stronger in that first half like he had last year. And Dr. Dag says, just wish Russ would stop the reverse gamble and throw the ball after 5 seconds. Too many unnecessary sacks. I feel that's kind of his game, but I agree the sacks seem like they're unnecessary. Just the hits, that's what I worry about. But let's get into our predictions. So Ross, I'm going to hit you off with the first prediction here, and it is over more likely to get traded, the 21st pick, the 29th pick, or both.
Most likely, 21st.
All right. Zeb?
Yeah, 21st.
I'm going to say most likely that both of the picks get traded away because it just seems inevitable.
I think that's the most smart play, but if I had to, if I was putting percentage, you know what? You might be right. I'm going to switch my answer. But Sammy said.
Dr. Dak says the 21st pick is most likely to get traded away. Over under on draft day trades. Seahawks at 3.5, and if you want, we can count in the Frank Clark trade, but really it should just be on the draft. Never mind. Over the next three days, over under draft trades 3.5, Thursday to Saturday.
Over.
I'm going to say under. I think what's going to happen is
Wait, how can you have us being losing picking? Go ahead, finish your answer. Then I'm gonna attack you.
Birdfinger says, hoping someone falls to the 21st pick and 29th traded. Both of these guys say over. I'm going to say under, and the reason why I'm going to say under is what has to happen for Seattle to get huge value is someone needs to fall at 21 or 29, and what has to happen is they have to make a desperation move. And really, the only way that happens is there has to be a quarterback that falls. And if a quarterback falls to 21, which is very possible, that's where Seattle can hit a gold mine and really turn that into a ton of picks. And that's the only reason why they would go under, because they score a cash, someone goes crazy, and they go nuts.
But you just told us with the last prediction, you predicted 21st and 29th both get traded. That's 2 right there.
Yeah, doesn't mean they've
already got 3 Clark. That's 3.
No, I said I took it back. I said we're not going to include the Frank Clark. We're just going to include draft
After
day.
those 2, you only get 1.5 the rest of the day, or the rest of the 3 days.
Yeah,
come on, man. No, because we got to get 6th and 7th rounders and stuff.
I'm trying.
They consciously like to have a pick in every round, right?
I'm trying to create friction, Ross. I'm trying to create dialogue.
You're doing a good job.
All right. To make it easy, Ross, over under players traded 1.5, not including Frank Clark.
Just players. 1, 2. Just ours? You mean acquiring?
We make a player trade, whether you count that as incoming or outgoing.
I'm gonna say just over.
I'll go under.
I'm gonna go with under as well. I don't think. What's that?
I said friction.
Friction.
Parody.
Doctor saying under as well.
You guys are morons.
What is
because there's gonna be a player just thrown in one deal somewhere. They're just gonna throw in the third, the third string linebacker somewhere.
They're gonna throw in a Gatorade cooler just for fun.
And I think they might. I think they're low key Ethan Posick may go to some place that values his type better.
Maybe.
We get a 7th or 6th.
Yeah, the Jets.
Yeah.
What is going to be the average Seahawks draft grade? So we'll just use a consensus of some of the big sites. A, B, C, D, or F. Not your draft grade, what you think the media draft grade average would be.
It's hard because famously, they used to draft grade them really, really bad, and then people got afraid to draft grade them bad after humiliating themselves. But then they had a few bad drafts, so I think it's kind of reset. C.
Zeb.
Yeah, I think they're gonna like I said, we're gonna be doing a lot of trading, and people are gonna look at the fact that we went into the draft with not a lot of picks and we got a lot of guys out of it, so we're probably gonna be looking at a C+, B-.
The good doctor says a C-. I'm gonna say that they're gonna get a D, because what's gonna happen is they're gonna look at Frank Clark, they're gonna say this is a marquee pass rusher, they're gonna look at the contract he got, and they're gonna say, did Seattle address this And if we don't, regardless of who they get, whether it's a first, second, third, or whatever pick, to say like, yeah, this is the guy that's going to rotate with us, they're going to get burned for that, and they're going to get a bad draft grade. Birdfinger's with me as well. He says they're going to get a D. And the final, most important question of the night, the prediction of the night. Ross, over under Russell Wilson's cornrows last how many months? 1.5? Over under?
Under.
Yeah, he'll be pulling those things out by Monday.
Like, you can't sell cornflakes to white people in Iowa with cornrows in your head. Like, you can't.
That's a lot of corn.
You just can't. Like, you can't. Nah.
You can't have a cornball and cornrows selling cornflakes to cornhuskers.
Birdfinger and the good doctor saying under as well. I'm going to say under. No opportunity for friction there, so sorry about that, guys. And
I hope he sticks with him, though. I hope he just goes with it. I like it.
I'm sure you do.
Dr. Dag's basically saying that Russell Wilson is the worst undercover dude ever. He would be like, "Hello, criminals. I will take 2 drug items." Yeah, I mean, if anyone is going to be a police officer on this Seahawks roster, it's most likely going to be Russ. If there's anyone that's a narc, it's probably Russell Wilson. But I love him, so.
Does anybody have any marijuana?
Yeah, right.
No, I have a gold chain, see?
I'm looking for marijuana.
And that is our podcast. Gentlemen, shout-outs.
Hey, shout out to my man Dame Dalla. The Blazers essentially got their version of the Beastquake last night. I'm not a huge basketball fan, but it was really cool to watch. And I'm happy for this city, and go Blazers.
My turn? What?
Yeah, Russ.
Oh.
Shout-out time.
I'm shouting out to Maddie Brown. This year, like I said, doing a lot of draft stuff, and got a few tips from him. I didn't ask him specifically, but off of his Twitter and all the stuff he writes, I got a few ideas, and I appreciate that. And to our listeners, thanks for coming in, and to Tony for picking some of my stuff up today that I have over there.
Yeah. Special shout out. This is the first year that I don't think we've invited Maddie to join us because he's fallen asleep at the wheel the last 2 times, so shout out to him. I want to give a special shout out to Damian Lillard as well. Birdfinger and Dr. Dags, they echo my sentiment, because not only did Damian Lillard drop a 50 burger on the Oklahoma City Thunder, it eliminated from the playoff. They have yet to win a road playoff game since Kevin Durant has left, and all that does is make me happy as a Seattle Sonics super fan. Thunder can rot, I don't care, but shout out to him. Check us out at hawkscast.com. We're on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, on our forum at Seahawks Forum. I am Sam, there's Zeb and Ross. We are the Hawkscast Podcast, and we appreciate Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.